Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of Here We Grow, where we are growing and evolving one day at a time, one step at a time, one moment at a time. I am your host, Key Ansler Burge, and this is my co host, my mommy. You can kind of see her picture, but say hello. Thank you. Okay, guys, we have another guest. As you can see, his name is Daniel Johnson. How are you doing, Daniel?
How you doing? I'm good. I'm good.
Good. So I have my ex Daniel for a bio, guys. Um, to start off, so you guys can get more familiar with who he is. So Daniel Johnson is 28 years old. He is originally from Senatobia, Mississippi. He withholds an associate degree in physical education from Itawama Community College, which is in Fulton, Mississippi. He also holds a bachelor's degree of arts in interdisciplinary studies with a focus in kinesiology at Mississippi State University.
Right.
Starkville, if you don't know, I'm pretty sure you guys know. People watching this post likely don't know that. And then finally, he has a master. I don't want to say finally, but he received another. He has another degree in Masters of Arts in Recreation Leisure Studies at University of Toledo, which is in Ohio. Daniel is going into 8 years as a strength and conditioning coach with stops from Mississippi State, Toledo, University of Houston, Texas Tech, and Louisiana Tech. He is currently an assistant athletic performance coach for Indiana University football program, and he finished a historic first season with the Hoosiers going 11-1 and appearance of the first round of the 2024 college football playoffs. Okay, Daniel is a busy, busy bee. Okay, he's
That is
buzzing
true.
around, spreading all the good vibes. Okay, so I also asked Daniel what was his like purpose or a quote, that he lived by, and he said, "Trust the process, don't rush the process." I love that. Be where your feet are, and don't take things personal on the journey to success. May win some, may lose some, but the process will always be prevalent to the results. And I love everything about that. It all screams be in the present moment, stay focused, okay? Every second, every minute, every moment. Okay. Great. You gotta do a good job, Travaya.
Nah, that was great. That was great. That was great. Round of applause, definitely,
Thank
definitely.
you. First time doing the bio like that. Well, on my own. My
And,
own.
and and when you advance in this space, like you can do the round of applause, like I guess a tag, like where there's somebody clapping behind the scenes type deal.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
Okay, great. So I don't know if you guys who saw me posting and saw us posting should know what this podcast episode is going to be about. But I wanted to kind of give you guys a disclaimer for people who have experienced trauma of any form that this podcast episode will be about trauma. So please brace yourselves to certain things. I'm not even sure what might be said, but this is a vulnerable space. It's also a safe space, but I do want to give you that that disclaimer. So we're going to get into some things hopefully today. So the name of today's episode is Lack of Love Leads to Trauma: The Impact of Trauma on Adolescence and Adulthood. So when Daniel and I started talking about this topic, or just Daniel and I have known each other since I was in the 7th grade. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. My mother taught you.
Yes, she did. So I met him in 7th grade. So we had been knowing each other for a very, very long time. But every time that we talked, Daniel and I always had really good conversations, and they always, it's kind of rare sometimes when you can go a long time talking to
Right.
someone, you can switch with topics. So I asked him to be on the podcast. I feel like he's going to be a perfect fit. And a lot of people were confused when I started this podcast because they thought it was only going to be for women.
Mm.
And I can see where they got that idea from. I'm definitely a women's advocate. Of course, I'm a woman, right? However, with life, we understand we have men and women here for a reason, and therefore there needs to be a bridging of the two. And I feel like in our world, sometimes it's so easy to choose a side and to pick a side, and we don't understand the importance of unity and community. So,
Right.
yes, he's gonna be my first male guest. Look at you.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
Round of applause again. Okay.
round of
Round of
applause.
applause again. Okay. Okay. I did
Yes.
not know that. All right.
Yes. So with my guests, I usually let them choose a topic, and so I mean, Daniel is awesome. So he spewed out a lot of different things, but I think our our initial time we're gonna meet was in February. So we wanted to focus on like a lack of love, and then he started bringing up trauma. And so I'm like, okay, that's perfect because we know that people who traumatize people usually they need some love.
Yeah.
So tell me your ideas of what trauma is to you.
Um, my idea of trauma, I look at it as this space, this space, this memory, this setting, this moment, however you want to frame it. I look at trauma as there was this point in your life where what what fueled you is what also killed you in a sense. Like what you didn't know that was bad for you, you felt that it was good for you. So I feel like trauma is a space where you're in to where you're being fed or you're witnessing this part of transaction from either a person, a thing, a sound, um, an overall experience to where it has overall control over you physically, mentally, and emotionally. So I look at trauma as you being in this space where you were affected by that experience to where it exposed you at your lowest moment.
Right.
And it being at your lowest moment, who knows the duration of how long you allowed that space to, embezzle as your personality or your character and etc. So, like I said, like you don't know what's so bad for you until you know that it's not bad, like that it's not good for you. So that's why I'm saying where trauma oftentimes we may experience people in our lives to where they may either hold us to a standard that we didn't know that we was placed upon, or we don't know that the person that we come in contact with, they're coming from trauma. So we share trauma together as we know that that's trauma bonding. Like there are so many different ways that uh, trauma can be felt as good, but it's for a duration or from a chronic long-term period is actually can be very detrimental.
Yes, I agree. Thank you because you hit on what I was gonna say next, literally everything. But I was gonna say from my experience, trauma is like a kind of like what you said, basically, like some type of incident or event that always plays some type of role in your life or even how you operate in
Mhm.
life, especially when you're unaware of that. But I wanted to also give the textbook dictionary because you guys, we always know we got it because some
Yeah,
people don't.
yeah, no, I'm glad. Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yes,
glad.
sometimes people don't they use words and don't quite understand what they're saying. And so sometimes I think people mix up what is a stressor versus what is trauma and they try to like
Mm,
and it's not the same thing. Okay. So, I feel
mm,
like a stressor is something that, is some type of challenge or adversity that you encounter from day to day, but you're able to get over and it doesn't really cause any psychological, mental, or physical change in you, right? But trauma, on the other hand, is that psychological, physical, um, just imprint on your life, right?
mhm.
Depending on what happened, So I wanted to kind of talk about the history of trauma or like the definition, how it has been, how it evolved, right?
Right.
So before trauma was, you talked a little bit about that, like physical, right? It was only regarded and talked about in terms of physical wounds. That was it, right? But then towards like the late 19th century, trauma you started to see more conversations being held about psychological trauma, mental trauma. And so we have the big ones like Sigmund Freud, you know him, right? Because he did a lot of psychological psychology stuff. So they started showing how you could actually be operating in a certain space in your life because of a psychological trauma. You don't have any physical wounds. It's like, how are people, doing these type of things?
Mhm.
But it's because of something that happened to them that maybe it wasn't a physical interaction type thing like that. It could have been emotional abuse, verbal, I don't, whatever the case may be. And so you touched on even the duration of trauma. And so we have acute trauma, we have chronic trauma, and then we have complex trauma. So acute trauma is something, one result of one single incident. Okay. Something happened, it impacted your life for the rest of your life. Chronic trauma, which we guys usually happen with victims of rape, victims of maybe even with parents having toxic parents, right? Chronic means a series of events that happen over and over for a prolonged period of time. And then we have complex, which is multiple traumatic events that's overlapping. So I would kind of call that, what's that word? Dang. Um, intersectional. There we go. Intersectional trauma. Okay. So you wanted to talk about trauma. What did you think when I first asked you about the topic and trauma popped up? What thing you thought about that said, okay, I think trauma is the place that we need to. That's something that's important for me.
As a man, as a new dad to a to a little boy, to a leader of young men that I coach on a daily, I'm surrounded by men. I'm surrounded by young men. I'm surrounded by elders. I'm surrounded by mid 40, 50. Like I'm surrounded by men. And as a servant leader, as a person that serves daily, you experience energies. You experience energies amongst others, and then you experience your own energy because you have to pour from your own cup as well. So it's like you're pouring in and you're pouring out. You're pouring in, you're pouring out. This is speaking from a man's perspective. I wanted to discuss. We're talking about trauma, and we talk about how that's a psychological, physiological experience, correct? But we don't also talk about trauma response. So, like, oftentimes we can heal from the trauma, but the trigger is still there. That's what a trauma response is. A trauma response is a trigger from that psychological, physiological experience that you had. Now, that's the thing. You probably will, God forbid, but a person may have been abused, growing up and etc. Didn't have parents, but then they ended up finding a life of getting married, and etc. The trauma's there, the trauma response may not. But then if you flip it on the other end, somebody might have responded well from not allowing the trauma to get to them, but they still know that that trigger is still there. So as a man, as a Black man especially, we oftentimes don't know how to just generally operate our emotions regularly, because oftentimes there's this trigger in us, and it's in me too. So that's why I'm saying this, is that I wish that my trauma didn't allow me to, there's a difference between a map and a landscape. Like I feel like with a map, you can see the state, you can see the different cities. But when you have a landscape, you have the streets, you have the highways, you have, where construction and etc. is. So you have where a detour is. So with me, I'm trying to compartmentalize or I'm really trying to differentiate how can I, and this is a daily, men that are spending time on continuously working on themselves, trying to improve themselves, trying to get, because we're so conditioned to do. You hear women say it, man, a man just supposed to do. Well, how is a man supposed to know if he don't know what to do? And oftentimes men have not been taught. They had to find a way their own life. So when that man does it his way or the way that he knows how, that's just from experience. That experience may be good. That experience may be bad. That bad is where the trauma lies. And do you want to know what outweighs what? Most likely the bad outweigh the good. Because if the good outweighed the bad, then the interaction between man and woman, that woman wouldn't feel that she's not secure with that man. She would feel that she could trust his word. She wouldn't feel that she needs to doubt his actions. So it's like oftentimes we're in relationships, we're in partnerships and businesses to where as men, we do not know how to regulate and being emotional, and not being so trauma response. Because oftentimes you can be emotional as a man. Like you can talk, you can express, you can, hey, that hurt my feelings and etc. But it's the way that you respond oftentimes. It's the way that you respond. And if you were corrected, if you're doubted, if you were slighted, however the case may be, you always have two choices. Always. I know what people say you got, but in life you always got two choices. It's either you do what you feel or you do what's right. And as a man, when there's trauma present, if he feels more than what is right, that trauma response can win every time.
So before we jump into the relationships and the extension of trauma, like how does it look like over time? Because I think we're going in the right direction with that, how it impacts all those different areas of our lives. I did want to bring up this point that you said the trauma response versus the trauma, or the trauma versus the trigger, which is how I
Mhm.
initially wrote it. And there's something that's very important there, which um people are aware of the trauma. The trauma is, like you said, you know what the trauma is, right? You feel it, you know it. The problem is the lack of awareness of
Right.
how you're responding to that trauma. And so what happens is people get become self-indulgent, or they find themselves over consuming in different ways, trying to deal with the trauma, but not even realizing that they're dealing with the trauma, you know. And so, especially with men, right? We know that, like you pointed out, that young boys aren't really given the space to be emotionally intelligent, to learn what that is, and to even feel safe to emotionally express themselves without being told, don't do that,
Right.
or you know, that's bitchy, you know. Let's use the right words. Like, let's use a word that they really learn how to shut men down, right?
Mhm.
um when those things happen, you're right, men tend to they begin to make choices that feel good for them, which is it's natural, you know. I don't think nothing now, of course, before I become evolved as a person, of course I would be like that, you know. This doesn't, why do men do this? I can't stand men, this and that. But um when you what you said, it was dead on, because we're all trying to do what feels good. And so for some men, and most men, it's that's what I'm gonna do. I don't care who feelings I hurt. I don't care how I got to get there, what I got to do. You know, most of the time, I'm going to do what needs to be done. And when we don't have that awareness, or the situational awareness, or even the awareness of other people, that's when I think all the other problems start to roll in. And I don't think that once you X men out and little boys out of there, when you remove the opportunity from them to know what their responses are to trauma, or to situations that um, can lead to behavioral changes, um, once you remove that, they no longer have the opportunity to be aware of anything else but their own survival at that point.
Right.
So, yeah, yeah. And you talked about what killed you versus what fuels you. That was very powerful for me, because I feel like now I'm older now, and so I realized that certain things that used to be like amping me up, it's like it's actually not amping me up.
That's growth.
I'm fooling myself, you know. I'm
Growth.
actually creating a lot of harm, more harm than I realized, because
Mhm.
I'm living off of a energy that's not actually fueling me at all, you know. And I'm making something seem and feel that it feels like it's boosting me, and it actually isn't.
Right.
And many of us are doing that, and we don't even know that we're doing that. But we're doing that because we see everyone else doing that, or we were raised and programmed to do those things in that way, and to find. So we're just trying to find some type of validation, some type of peace, some type of
Mhm.
joy, when it's not really any of that.
Mhm.
So a lot of us around here walking around traumatized, to be honest,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
not aware. Yeah. And from a woman's point of view, I would say, fortunately, unfortunately, because no one wants to experience trauma, I would say I experienced more mental and verbal abuse, not necessarily from parents, but mostly from peers.
Mhm.
Um, I would say even just a lack of emotional connection was a form of abuse for me, from family members. to be honest, because it's just like we're little humans trying to figure out, how to express and how to feel. Because for one, we don't even know how to feel emotions. As soon as we feel uncomfortable, we either run or we find a way to process it. And sometimes it's no point in all that. You just need to see what you feel, how you feel, so you can learn what those triggers are, those responses are. You can feel it in your body to know what you need at that moment, right? Like maybe I need to get out of the way. Maybe I need to get a breath of fresh air. Maybe I need a cup of coffee, think like healthy ways to deal with it.
Right.
But I would say for a woman where I have found myself misstepping, for one, is this idea that just because I have a womb that makes me a woman. That's not the truth. And I'm learning that a lot of women feel not like a biological sense. I'm just talking about overall, what does a woman look like? What is a man like? What does those characteristics look like for someone who is ahead of themselves, who are there for themselves, who are reliable, who have mastered themselves? And I realized that many women they're raised to be women but are still little girls, and so they move through life wanting to be a woman, pretending to be a woman when they haven't even resolved the issues from being a little girl. So they approach relationships, partnerships in a way, most women approach it in a way that like it's just kind of childish sometimes, or it's kind of like it's needy. It's like we've just forgotten how the power that we do have and the choices that we can make. It's like we always have to run something, the people pleasing aspect that women have a lot, because we're taught how to please others at a young age. So I learned that when I got older, even after my mom passed away, I was like, I'm never gonna be like that. Like it's just certain things. I'm like, I can't, because it's, as a woman, like even with somebody telling you, you don't need that. And I don't even think it's just for women, but for men as well. They're the external validation, all these things that are on the outside of us. We don't need those things to be pure and to show up as whole as we can be. We don't have to apologize when we don't show up the best that we can, knowing that if we're dealing with something like trauma. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just need that space to just let that come out and deal with it however it needs to, and then you can go along. But I feel like everybody's trying to be this perfect person and don't want to admit that, like, I'm not great all the time. I'm just not. And and that's something that was very hard for me, because I'm like, I grew up as a person that everyone knew I was going to go to college. I was going to, be on my own. They knew everything I'm doing now. I'm pretty sure they probably wrote down the book, and that's what it was, So as I am transitioning more into who I really am, I found myself kind of hitting walls because of that, because I'm like, I have to be perfect. I have to present. I have to always be. And it's just like, who I am naturally is perfect, right? Like there's no such thing as a level of perfection to the point that you can't show up authentically, right? Anything, what did you say?
No, I'm listening.
Oh yeah. So yeah, anytime that you have to show up in a way that's not yourself, that's not perfect, that is not an expectation or a level to examine perfection. So yes, and just getting over like just hearing things that people used to say to me, just trying to tear me down, as an individual, or like just all those things. And going through an abusive relationship, right, was traumatic. It was. But I'm learning that, which I love that you point out, it's not actually the trauma, it's the response. It's how to stop giving the trauma so much power over you. To regain your control. And that's what I'm learning as a woman, that it's important for me to gain control over my emotions. That's the most powerful thing I can do as a woman, because if I do not, I would just not only self-destruct, but I would destroy everyone else around me.
Right. 1,000%.
No.
1,000%.
Oh.
Nah,
what are you thinking?
Look, no, I was listening. I was giving you the floor. I didn't want to Like when you speak, I listen. I don't want to talk
Oh,
over
you're
you.
good.
No, I agree. It's a challenge for sure, and I think that it should always be an ongoing learning process for a person, and especially myself. I can't really speak for nobody else, but for myself, as an overachiever, and in a lot of ways, I really try to hold myself more accountable, and that's where it starts. Like the trauma response has to come with self accountability because oftentimes you know what triggers you, right? So it's like you can't feed into the devil. You can't feed into what like it's almost as if like you know how people say what's that saying? I can't even process. But it's no different than if you owe me some money, right? $20. And you pay like if I owed you $20, if I owed you $20 and you were expecting a payment back on Friday, you would be expecting that payment back on Friday, not Saturday, not
Yeah.
Sunday, not Monday. It's the same thing. If you know for a fact that when somebody says something to you that triggers you, I said it's either what's right or how you feel. And oftentimes how we feel emotionally, we're allowed to express, we're allowed to say, but we gotta think, why are we letting this person say something like this trigger me? It's like why? So then it has to go back to self, like, okay, wait a minute. I've been having these issues with this person or with myself, and I'm still giving them the opportunity, access to trigger my response or to trigger my trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes you have to be careful with who you express your trauma with because, just like on Facebook or any other social media site, monitoring spirits is a real thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't try to announce your move to everybody. Like, stop telling people you finna go ghost. Stop telling people this. Just do it because you really think that if you tell the world to pray for you, they gonna pray for you. Y'all pray for me.
I don't want your prayers. I'm good. I
Not
was so
everybody
I pray,
prayers.
but I
Not
don't
everybody prayers are sacred. We don't know that their relationship with the Lord. Like, I'm not
exactly.
saying prayer is bad, but it's like I'm saying you have to be careful with. We have to be careful with how we allow people access to what bothers or triggers us. Why do you think a lot of men are silent? Because oftentimes when men express, it doesn't get heard. It gets flipped. It somehow is made about the woman or whatever the case may be. And it's like I'm trying to tell you an issue, but now we have to worry about how that makes you feel. Because if I neglect how you feel, I'm just much of a bad. I'm a bad person. So that's what I'm saying. Is like men are oftentimes given the opportunity to express without a rebuttal, express without it being flipped, express without it making it about your emotions. Because I'm over here suffering because you think this is my first time saying something to you, or you think that this is my first time even saying something close to like this about you, and you still choose to do it. And it's like instead of just doing it, it's got to be about the person and how they feel. So men would rather just zip it because with I can't speak for most men, but men that provide not financially, that provide infrastructure, that provide emotional availability, not just discernment, but knowing their strengths and weaknesses of themselves. When men have to do all of that, do you really think they have the capacity to even fall short? Because if we fall short with being responsible for so much, that one mistake is what we are most times defined by. 2 weeks ago, I was leaving up from home from the city. I was sitting told me. I got home late and I'm thinking I can sleep for an extra hour and then get up for my alarm. I overslept. But it's not the fact that I overslept. It's the fact that I overslept and missed my first meeting in my career in 8 years. See, when men want to talk about that. Like, we don't talk about, oftentimes, men aren't talking about all this other stuff. Like, that's why I said in the beginning, men that provide infrastructure, like men that are taking care of a lot of people emotionally, physically, however you want to put it, you can look from a holistic view. But when men go through something that small, Key, I'm telling you, that minuscule, you don't understand how it affects him. Because if I tell somebody how small that made me feel, they're gonna be like, it's okay. Like, we want that. We want for somebody to tell us it's okay. Like, we want that. We don't want combativeness. We don't want, like, dang, I gotta be discerning for everybody. Well, why can't the people that I'm being discerning for can be discerning back? Like, if you know that I'm over here juggling all these things, people look at the success too much on my end. They look at my success and they think, oh, he good.
He doesn't need that extra.
Like, I do this on my own. I've been doing this on my own for 8 years. And it's like, is there a village behind me? 1,000%. But what I'm saying is men are suffering through their success because, of course, we've been programmed to go get it, go get it, go get it, go get it. And don't get me wrong now. There are a lot of men out here doing a lot of talking, but less doing. They're not surrounding themselves with other brothers that's going to put them in the position. They're always pointing the blame and the finger of who must. That's why I went back and told you self-accountability at the end of the day. Because oftentimes, okay, I'm going to tell you real talk. There's an age limit for Black people, in my opinion. I remember us talking a couple months ago. Like, you told me, like, you was grown back in high school. Disrespectfully, though, you know what I'm saying? The things that you've experienced, the people you were grown in high school. So to Black people, in a sense, we were grown before we were grown. Some of us had to grow up sooner than others. Oh. So can you blame the trauma? Can you blame the trauma response?
No, I don't think that trauma is a problem. Not saying that, you know, people who have experienced trauma, of course, like, but we have to realize that traumatized people, just like hurt people. Those people are operating at the level that they can. And whether we like it or not, they're doing the best they can, even if it's such ass, you know, even if it's terrible abuse. They are doing the best that they can. And we find ourselves in those situations. For one, going back to your point about accountability, we have to be accountable for the fact that something in our energy field called that said, yep, somewhere you were vibrating there. Because I don't care what nobody say. Right. Like energy attract the same. Doesn't mean that you're going out here abusing other people, but you could be abusing yourself to some extent. You know, you could be talking to yourself down on yourself. You know, it shows up in different ways. So when other people do it to us, it's, oh my gosh, you know, why would they do that? And it's like, well, what have you been doing to yourself? So that's the first for me, accountability, right? Something I've misstepped somewhere in my energy that I have kind of matched this type of vibration. But then second, like you said, we can get over the trauma easily if we really wanted to.
Right.
But what happens is what we do when we get hurt and we're confused, and instead of accepting that we're confused and like, okay, but I'm still going to get past this, we say, here you go, all our power to the other person. Then we're stuck in 2005 and it's 2025. You get what I'm saying? We ground our energy in an event and don't allow ourselves to grow. So even we're holding on to so much stuff all the time because we can't just accept the fact that this thing happened. That person did what they did, but I don't have to give them my energy anymore. I can take it back I can say, okay, yes, this has shaped me to be a better person. It makes me more aware, if I'm in this situation, I know not to do this to another person. I know not to do this to myself. And just learning how to navigate through life with more sensitivity. And so that's why a lot of people don't they don't even know sometimes, you say we know we're going through trauma. Some of us don't. It's so fascinating how we could be experiencing the same things and we all look at it from different perspectives. It's so beautiful and it's so scary and it's crazy. But some of us don't know that we're going through trauma at
And
all. They think
that
it's
goes
normal. And
that goes to that goes to my point of beginning, where like you don't know what's bad for you until like you realize what's not good for you. Like you really, you know what I'm saying? Like it can be substance abuse.
yes.
God bless, like God willing as well. Like even just the people that have experienced all type of abuse growing up. Like man, like I can only. And the fact that social media is prevalent to these days, like you see things on camera and the things that you see on the internet, it's just it's disheartening, man. And it just makes that's where we talking about the self accountability thing. It makes you check yourself. Like when you can put yourself and with trauma, the beauty of trauma, because it's perception we're talking about. The beauty of trauma is being able to empathize, being able to put yourself in the opposite person's shoes. You may not experience it and you may not understand, but to see them in their hardships and their failure, to feel them, to hold them, to confine them, all those things, whatever you feel that you're emotionally equipped for, to wanting to understand somebody's situation. Empathizing with somebody is probably second to apologizing. Apologizing is probably the first greatest human act that a person can do to somebody to empathize. And then secondly, I would say being able to put yourself in their shoes. Because my mom always told me, never say that it can never be you, because it can be you.
Yes, everything can change in the flip of a coin. Okay. Yes, but yeah, I definitely, that turning your pain into power. We get so stuck on the pain part that we don't realize that that is an opportunity to become the most powerful version of yourself, to create, to write, to rewrite your story. I feel like we always we gotta stay stuck. And I understand it's so hard. It's difficult, going through traumatic things. But as long as you keep talking about it in ways, if you're the victim, you will forever be the victim. And me personally, I don't want to be the victim. Okay. I want to be the victor. And it doesn't matter what I go through, it's like, how can I transform this trauma, period? Like, because it can be with us and we just have to focus our energy in that way. But yeah, it's the sensitivity part. People aren't sensitive enough because of all that we see on social media now, all the information that we have access to. Most of us are desensitized a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
They're laughing at stuff that's not even funny. It's like, how we go, okay, all right, is everybody okay here? But they don't even know, because it's just, and the laughter is a trauma response. People, you making jokes, it's not funny, right? But it's the way that you're coping. You're trying to get through it. You're trying to make it make sense.
You make a solid point. The last week or so, on Facebook, I saw that video of Big Boogie receiving flowers and balloons, and on Facebook, people were clowning him. And maybe this was my trauma response, because I've seen people give and still don't receive. And him receiving those balloons and gifts, you got people laughing. Like you said, it's a response. You have people laughing at this brother for crying because his brothers or his camp was like, hey, bro, you being a great father, you taking care of this, you put money in our pockets, bro, keep doing your thing, bro. Like, and you had the nerve of Black people laughing at that. And that triggered me so bad. And I was like, to some people, like, why are you mad? And it's like, when you do for so many people and you get so little in return, it hurts. It hurts to not get recognized, acknowledged, of anything, because that's what you're supposed to do. But even though that's what I'm supposed to do, acknowledge it. That's what men want to return. That's what men want to return. So Bull is crying because he can't believe in this. Like, bro, y'all see me, bro. Y'all see what I go through, and y'all do this for me. I appreciate it, man. But you got people laughing at a black man, at a brother that's got kids, you know what I'm saying, that's doing right, that's making money, that's, you know, staying out streets, taking his town to another level, and taking care of all these people around him. And you got people laughing at him because he's like, wow, like my boys are. I'm gonna just say this. If people are laughing at that, never laugh at another man's pain. If you're gonna laugh at that, and oh, they bringing balloons to me in person, when I die, don't bring no balloons and flowers to me when I'm dead.
Yeah.
Because people want to wait till people die to give them their flowers. And it's like, nah, like you have men, like men do a terrible job, and then it's don't, that's gonna be another topic, but I don't want to go to it. But I'm saying
Gotta bring you back for a part 2.
us men do a terrible job of like, making it okay to cry, making it okay to laugh, making it okay to express. I'm a workaholic, absolutely, but when it's time for me to say I'm tired, and I'm gonna say I'm tired. I'm gonna sit my tail down and drink me a little cooler and pop on the game and call it a day. Like, but men that cry, you have our demographic labeling men sassy. You got them labeling men homophobic, like gay, like all this other stuff, and it's just like I just don't. I have not felt more disrespected amongst our men more than ever because now it's like men are saying no, like men are putting their foot down in today's world. You know what I'm saying? But it's like men are having enough of just being a stool, of being the man that just provides and ain't got to say nothing.
Right.
Like there's no benefit, and that's the thing. We need to stop looking at benefits because that means I'm looking for a transaction. Like, so that's why I'm saying, like, oftentimes when it comes to trauma, like, you have to be careful, but at the same time, like, when you get to an age like 25, you know from right from wrong.
Yeah.
You know when you need to pay that bill. You know when you need to go see mama. You know when you need to go change your clothes and put on, you know what I'm saying, take a bath. Like,
yeah,
it's no different.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I definitely feel like when men have always felt this way, you know, I feel like that men are just not feeling comfortable. And we have to think all the way back historically, right? What we learned about slavery and all those things, right? I feel like that men have always been depicted as the you know, protector, the provider, the one who always gets the job done. And then but his needs are never actually attended to. This is why a lot of men are and just side note, just with relationships, all this cheating and all these things, right? Because it's like you can't, it's like you're going after something or someone, and then you realize, well, dang, it looks good on paper, but I'm not actually getting my emotional needs met. I'm not actually being heard. Like, you know, when the example that you gave about missing your meeting, right? It wasn't about you waking up late. It's the meeting. It's about, I put 8 years of my life. How could I do this to myself? And that just because you're a person who values your work, who is serious about what you do in your career,
right?
That makes you feel like you bobbed down a pedestal, you know, like you've been like, because why, you know, how did I let myself do this, right? But people, when you talked about men always go get it, right? That's a masculine energy. And so what happens is men are always and automatically, unfortunately, put in positions of masculine energy completely and wholeheartedly, which creates an imbalance of energy all the time. Thankfully, you know when it's time to rest, it's time for you to chill, it's time for you to create, it's time for you to imagine, you know. But men don't. And so for someone like Big Boogie, who able to accepting is feminine energy, right? The fact that he accepted the flowers, he accepted the gifts or whatever they gave him, right? And the fact that people laughed at it's because people aren't used to accepting things. They're not used to being on that other end of the stick. So when they see it, it's like, what? Like laughing, like nothing's funny about it.
People will realize saying, "Oh, I'd rather you buy me this and that." I'm like,
No, and see, and you know, we live in a materialistic world.
Yeah, I'm like, y'all are defeating
And
the
so,
whole purpose.
yes,
It's
yes,
not
everything.
meaningful.
It's not, and sometimes people and you think and like a man like him or just a man that can take care of himself in general, right? It's not even about the what you can a present. I mean, of course they would like it, but it's just like sometimes it's bigger than just it's the fact that you thought about me, that you bought me flowers, right? Like I don't even think a lot of men even get flowers enough to even know if they like flowers. But I feel like men would love to be gifted flowers because it's just like
I just
wow.
got myself a new thing. I give myself
It's like
flowers. Excuse me. I give myself flowers twice a month.
I
And I
see.
have this saying, new week requires new energy. And like for me, I just constantly try to give myself flowers. This woman stopped me in the grocery store one day and she gave me this tip. She said, hey, like those flowers are nice. She was like, hey, you want to know how you can make them last another week longer? I was like, wow. She was like, just take out the water. Like, because
Yeah,
you put the water in, you put the stuff in there,
yeah,
like dump that out, just put a refresh of water and then like and like they smell good. Like when I got some lilies in there, like when they like sprout, like and you smell, you can just smell the pure of the flower.
yeah.
Like I love it. I
It's
love
like energizing. Yeah,
it. It's
love.
I think that um oftentimes as men we don't take care of ourselves. Like
Mhm.
I am a big advocate of self-care. And gifting myself flowers is a part of self-care to me. And we are visual learners oftentimes. So when you can see flowers, it's you will now know what it's like when somebody gives you flowers, you're not awkward by it in a sense. So it's like self-care is very important.
Yeah,
In order to regulate through all of trauma. Because there's it ain't like you just gonna get over trauma overnight. Like you gotta work through it. So you have to figure out ways of how can I work on myself while overcoming trauma. Like, how can I both align to where we're both going like that? So it's like it's the same thing. Like, take care of yourself. Like as you're going through these things, like people go to therapy, people go to counseling, people go to the gym, people eat healthy, people do while working on that trauma. So it's like self
but
care.
and to kind of piggyback off of that, to your point, I think that we have been programmed to feel that we can't get over trauma quickly. I think that it definitely is a subscription to something. Because I've met people who are they're very in tune with themselves. So even when they experience certain traumatic things, they're able to get over them pretty quickly because they don't even have the connection there. Like I mean, it's something like, dang, well, what was that kind of hurt? But it's not that mental attachment to it. It's like, well, that happened. I know next time I know the signs, or I can know when my body or my whatever's going on. I know the signals where something's not right, and I can get away quicker before this happens again. But I feel like we're trying to make meaning of who we are here, okay? Because we're establishing our connection with Source, with God, and we make meaning out of our lives through those situations because they do play a role in who we are, how our lives are shaped and how we shape them. But um we just need to stop attaching in the way that we do because it causes a lot of external, physical problems, and it's like all these other things. But yeah, that's really cool that you do give yourself flowers. I think a lot of men don't know, and they don't like, because like we talked about earlier, as children, and relating back to the idea of trauma, even men, little boys aren't even, it's like even the gift giving with little boys is so different than girls, or just like how the interaction of love and appreciation is shown completely different. And so you don't know what that looks like. And so sometimes when you meet people who actually don't want anything from you and just want to interact and want to just commune, um people don't know how to deal with that, and they tend to self-sabotage because it's like, what, you have to want something, right? Like we live in such a transactional environment. You have to want something from you, right? Like there's no way that you're just nice and you're kind and you're full of love and energy and you give me flowers and you're here, you do these things for me. Like it's crazy how trauma can just, we will self-destruct and we will destroy everything around us because We just are so fearful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I um I will say, like, you can look at that on both ends too. Like, you
Yes.
can look at it as the person that's love bombing, that's a trauma response. Like,
Hmm.
you can look at the person that's self-sabotaging, that's a trauma response. Like, you can look at it literally from both ends. And that's why that's still a form of trauma bonding. A person that's love bombing to a person that self-sabotage, that's trauma bonding in the way. Like, no matter how you describe it. And oftentimes, like, we say communication is key, but we also know that comprehending is the major key. Like, it's like, hey, like, do you understand what I'm saying? Type deal. But not everybody will. And I think we're such in an urgent generation, like, it's so fast, and anything that happens fast can end fast. So it's like people are expecting folks to be healed, to know what they want, to have money, to have your life together, to this, and it's like, I'm gonna be real and I'm gonna say this, but a lot of us ain't who we think we are for us to be setting parameters for people. Like, that could be business wise, it doesn't matter. Like, giving people checklists that they gotta meet to have access to you, that's okay. I get that's a standard, but it's like you're probably kicking out a lot of people if you're setting up a standard,
Hmm.
general, basic standard. Fair, like, we say fair, job, have a car, woo. But you have to figure out your preferences and what you like for that to even be granted to you. Because oftentimes, like, you might be with somebody that looks well and etc., but he doesn't have a lot of motion going on. But like, to your character, to your morals, to your standards, it's gonna be a decision of, does it does it see fit or does it not? And that's okay. So, like, that's what I'm saying. You know what you want beforehand,
Yeah.
like, not during it, and then you try to. I think different people bring different results. I think trauma brings the most out of others, but if you're not operating from a space of understanding, if you're not operating from a space of, like, hey, like, I don't think a lot of men express their trauma to other people because, like I said, it's either going to get blown back up, or it's going to be like, or it's going to run the person off. That's a lot of times. A lot
Yeah.
of times, men don't share their trauma because they're afraid of the truth is going to reveal who they truly are, and then, like, that's not going to make the person want to go with them. But then I encourage men, like, hey, tell them,
Yeah.
like, give them the ball in their court. Tell businesses that you aren't certified. Tell them that you're I'm on track to get my degree. Tell people the disclaim information before they even get to, because look, I'm gonna put it in your court so you can know what my head is. I used to I said this earlier to one of my partners. We was on the phone earlier this morning. I told him, I said, hey, bro, there's a difference between not telling the truth and withholding information. People may call that manipulation or whatever you want to call it. Not everybody deserves access to what it took for you to get to where you are or why you're in the situation that you're in. Like, people must earn the right to learn you. Like, just telling people who you are, oh, this happened in my life, this happened in my life, this happened in my life, this happened in my life. Some people ain't gonna respond well to that. Some people ain't gonna give a damn. They just gonna be like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And here you go spilling, telling them all your why you are who you are and what makes you weak and what makes you strong. And they just gonna be like, I just think you're fine. I ain't really trying to. Or like, yeah, I heard that you will do well for our business. I don't.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, withholding information from certain energies, from certain spirits, is a good thing. Not everybody needs to know, uh, why you moved. Some
Yeah.
people might have moved for a better job opportunity, but some people probably moved to escape. And then you really think that some people deserve that right to know that?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's a trauma response. Like, withholding information could be a trauma response. It's like, nah, because I'm traumatized by telling somebody my plans, and they did it on me and flipped the script. Or I told somebody my plans, or I gave somebody some money and they stole from me. That's a trauma response. So it's anytime that in the beginning, when we talk about an experience, a moment, a time in your life to where it overpowered you, that's where you find, okay, like this is a trauma and this is how I'm responding to that.
I'm glad you just brought that up because, guys, before we hop back on here, we were initially recording, and then we had you know that the technology has a lot of its on, so we had to re-record. And so I don't did I mention it this time about the three main types of trauma and all that stuff? Then I don't think I did when we started this. Did I?
Could you repeat that?
The three main types. Did I mention that
Uh,
on
no,
this one?
I don't
I
think
don't think I did because you just hop right back in, right? Yeah. So if I did, it's okay. We were talking about trauma, even though we talked about a little bit about it, but then beautifully responded when I asked him on the very first time we started recording about trauma. Um, what was trauma? How did he define trauma? Okay. He talked about basically a single event, some type of experience that kind of replays itself in your mind. It's like an imprint. And then I started to speak about the three different types of trauma. We have acute, chronic, and complex. And so acute is when that happens with the result of a single incident, and then chronic trauma is a series of incidents that's repeated or prolonged. We know what that looks like, right? And then complex trauma is multiple traumatic events overlapping, which I would rather call intersectional trauma. And so we just kind of, what way can we, I'll leave that for later. Let me bounce back. So when we talk about telling the truth, okay, and you talked a little bit earlier, like as a man, right? Man, you said men zip it up. They zip it up. They don't
right.
tell what they say because it gets turned into a lot of things. So as a perspective from a woman, what I have learned, which I'm learning to not do now, I've unlearned it, but women don't like to be told the truth. Okay, this is why a lot of men withhold information or they just outright lie, right? Because women can't hold and it's like even they find out the truth, I don't even think
Or they tell the truth. Yeah, throw that in there. They could lie, they could withhold, or they tell the truth.
they tell the truth, right? I don't think that women actually care about the truth sometimes. Like if a man was to tell them, I don't even think they would care. Like if they gave them a choice, they probably still choose probably what the man wanted them to choose in the first place, right? I just think that women like stories. They like storytelling. They like to be swept off their feet. They like it to look good. They like to romanticize things. And so what happens is that's why a lot of men don't tell the truth, and they keep their mouth shut a lot of the time, especially in relations with women, or even just not even a romantic level, even a platonic level, or even on a business level, right? Because that ego of being told the truth amongst women can be it can look, I had to get over that because I had to get told the truth one time, and it was painful, right? But it was a mirror, and I needed that because when you're learning how to be accountable, when you're trying to self-master yourself, you can't get there without being honest. Like, hey, I made a terrible mistake. I fucked up. That was not the best part of me. What I'm saying? It can hurt, but as soon as you are accountable and you take that power back, you're gonna be like, you know what? I did that. I don't know why. I don't know what headspace I was in, but at the end of the day, I'm still a great person, and I'm just learning and I'm figuring it out. And I know not to do that again. Now, someone keeps repeating the same things, right? We already know what that is. You're insane. You can't keep doing the same things and expect a different result. So I'm not saying that, but when you actually learn how to learn through your behaviors, knowing that doesn't work for you, this does work for you, that's when but yeah, we especially coming from Mississippi, we have this strange relationship with truth or even telling the truth. It's like you're on the side of, oh, I'm a real ass, I'm real, I'm gonna tell the truth. And then it's like, but why do I gotta know my business though? And I'm a strong, firm believer that I don't have to tell nobody nothing about what I'm doing. Before my mom passed away, it was her. Okay. I would tell her, I would tell her everything, cool. She know probably the truth, every truth that from my side. But as far as other people, my family, or even like it's only certain people right now that know a majority of things about me, but a lot of certain things I still haven't told people because that's for me. You know what I mean? And we are so used to trying to build connections and relate so much through trauma that we're not understanding that we don't need to actually relate through trauma. Sometimes that stuff is meant for you and you only, and you can get over it. If you need help, seek the help. You know what I mean? But it's like we just, even with simple as I got a house and I'm moving, why do I have to let you know what I'm doing with my money? I don't understand it. Like, and I know, and especially if you have been making decent decisions in your life and you've been taking care of yourself, like you said, you've been doing this for 8 years, right? You've been on this career path. I don't think it's quite necessary that you're, really trying to. And I don't even think it's the problem in telling someone. It's kind of that need for validation that's the problem. Because I feel like when you start asking or start talking to someone about what your plans are, what you're doing, you're kind of asking for that validation. And that's where that's the disconnect. And most of us think that we're just telling the truth when really we're asking for validation. We're really asking for advice. We just don't know how to say it. So,
I agree.
but you're right. Trauma shows up in a lot of different ways. It does.
Mm-hmm. That was my point. Exactly.
It truly does. Yeah.
I try to figure out for the most part, what like what triggers me is funny because like it's a constant battle of trying not to be triggered by it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get triggered by being asked questions, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Like I get triggered by I don't know if it comes with age, but like there's also those triggers to where like there's a reason why you may not conduct business or have a relationship with somebody in a certain way because of how it affected you.
Yeah.
I remember being in a relationship and this young lady that I was with at the time ghosted me because she was kind enough to send me a 4-page, 5-page like text message of like what I did wrong. And that was like my first like hardship of the relationship. It was like 2019. Like it wasn't like when I was a teenager. It was like in my 20s. And you know, you you think you're doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Like I got no respect for people that ghost people. Like you know what you did, and it's like that's what I'm saying. Like you could be so head over heels for somebody, or you could be thinking you're doing the right thing for somebody, and they got so much power to where they can just be like, I'm out and slip that rug right up under them. Be like, what? And it's like I had no rebuttal. I couldn't say nothing. It's just like they had their own observation of me, like I was being tested.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like after that, I felt like, damn, so I was being tested this whole weekend. Like, and there was truth. There was truth, just the way that they put it in a text message.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's that lack of the communication and comprehension part.
it's
For
the lack of consideration of allowing a person to where if you feel that way, why can't the opposite person express how they feel?
right.
Like that person has that much power that they can say their voice and go somebody that they were, invested with and get no chance to respond the way that they want to respond. So I had to carry that for 3 years. And I
Mm-hmm.
was sitting on my couch. I was living in Houston, Texas at the time, chilling. I get a strange DM from this young lady that I have not talked to in 3 years at that
Right.
point in time. I was confused. I'm like, hey, can we talk? I'm like, this where the unfairness lies because the person that did that, they were able to spend their time on healing.
Mm-hmm.
They would spend their time on, you know, whatever it made them feel at that time. But then when you got somebody that had to deal with it on their own for 3 years who didn't have a rebuttal because they was ghosted, it was blocked from everything. I'm trying to send emails. I'm trying to, like, what's going on? Like, we was just good 24 hours. Like, and that's where a lot of men fall short. I can't speak for most. I'm gonna say that's where I fell short. Excuse me, because at that point in time, I knew then I was like, never again. I'll never let a woman make me feel that way. ever been, ever in my life. And that's not me trying to box every woman in because I believe in every woman deserves a clean slate. That's the thing about hardships.
Mhm.
You can't you can't allow your trauma to spew over into other people's lives. Like, even if the trauma's still there, if you are that soul, like if you're that strong within your will, within yourself, you're gonna let what you go through be for what you go through. You're not gonna, and that's the thing. A lot of men go through shit and people don't even know it.
Right.
You could be getting treated so well, and you won't even know it because you wouldn't understand. And it's not meant for to you to understand. Some women love to be the captain, the hero, to like, talk to me, tell me, woo, woo. And it's like, Mom, I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna understand. You're not. As a matter of fact, I'll give you, I'll break it down to you, but it's gonna take some time for me to break it down to you. And I hope that you are emotionally available and still interested in me throughout the duration of however long we talk, to where like you allow me to give me time to express that.
Right.
And it's tough. So that's the thing. Like, I'll just never forget. Like, I'll never forget. She said something. She said she had like 8 red flags or something that I had over the weekend, and one of them was I was walking too fast.
Wait, so you was leaving the girl? You was
No, like, okay, I'm
like,
gonna tell you a few red flags. I'm gonna tell you, look, chat, just I'm gonna tell y'all a few red flags that this young lady told me. Like I said, this is 2019. This is, and this was my middle school crush. Like, I didn't even think that I could bag her, y'all. Like, I didn't think that, but then uh, you know, when you are young, successful, it can talk for you. You know what I'm saying? So we rekindled through the social media, uh, text, talk, etc. Flew her up, you know what I'm saying? Great first weekend, very platonic, but it was intimate, but it was platonic though. It wasn't no relations. Even the second go around, it wasn't no relations. And that's how I knew that I was like really serious with somebody, and I where it wasn't lustful for me. And we played that second weekend and it was great. But I was pressing for time all the time because it was in season. So I got paid the next Saturday, so it came up at the right weekend. I'm pressed for time because I work all day, but I'm trying to, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. So was I disorganized, Key? Yes, I was. I was disorganized, but I was still trying to like put on this show that I was this man, that I could do this, I could provide, I could do this, and etc. And one red flag she brought up was I was walking too fast. So like we was downtown one night, and I guess through my steps, she was walking behind me.
you do get to walking. The liquor. It kind
Yeah,
of
I can't help that I can't help that I'm tall and like I got just
a
long
longer stride.
strides.
Yeah.
And you know,
So it wasn't really the fact that you were walking faster. It's maybe she felt that you weren't aware of her being behind you. I don't know.
yeah, and so like I understand that. So, but I'm like, till this day, my trauma response to that is I don't let women, I don't let my nieces, I don't let them walk behind me. I'm still dealing with it. But that's a good response. Like, okay, like I don't let my babies, like none of that. Like everybody walking in front.
Yeah.
My mama, everybody walking in front. So I
Yeah.
learned my lesson through that trauma. That's my trauma response. I'll tell you another one. That's why I said you think back, you like, dog. But is it really a fumble though? Because oftentimes you don't know what's bad for you until you find out what's not good for you when it actually is gone out your life. So like, I'm thankful. Not all good people get fumbled. Like we need to get that clear. Like not everybody is who they think they are. And I say that to say this, like I'll never forget. Oh, you don't laugh at this one. There was a trauma. There was a red flag that it's 8 of them. It's like 8 some red flags. I'm trying to think of one that's really gonna have you like, dang, what? Uh,
What's the best you got?
one of them was we went to a bar and she left her like she went in the bathroom. Like, not me. We get in the Uber, we finna drive off, ooh, and she's like, "Oh, I left my phone. I dropped my phone." Am I triggered? No, but am I like, how would you leave your phone in the bathroom? Like, I'm looking like, oh, that's kind of irresponsible, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna hold that over your head. She made it seem like I was mad at her because of that. And I was like, no, I'm just saying you're in an unfamiliar city. Like, just be more careful. Like, that's all I'm saying. And like, it's like I'm sorry that I'm not, oh, it's okay. Like, oh, I'm just like, hey, like,
That goes back to my point when I said women don't like the truth, because that was simply the truth. That was not anything bad. You just like, why would you do that? But like I was saying earlier too, this idea that we're taught to be women at a very young age when we're still little girls, because at that moment she didn't, even though it was the truth, she felt it was being, you were scolding her and you weren't actually scolding her. You know what I mean? But she took it that way because she's like, well, you're the man, so you're supposed to be helping me make sure that I get
man, shit.
have
Man,
all of my belongings, right?
I, that I'm still getting over that shit. Like that, I can play that shit back like in the back of my head because like I said, as a man, you think you're doing everything right. Like you in this like just talk, like just say something. Like just say something. Like that's like women that choose to have intercourse with a man that, responsible adults that choose to have intercourse with a man. And if it's not good, say something.
Right.
Don't feed the man's ego by letting him, excuse me, but let him finish and do all this other. If the connection is there, have the audacity to tell him, hey, this is what I like for you to do better.
Right.
Because a
Right.
man gonna listen, especially if he's investing. Because how is he gonna know? He's just gonna go off of, man, I think I'm doing great. But then it's like, how is he gonna know if the person that's receiving, like, she's not responding, recognize?
Not speaking
And
up.
then for so long, men are out here doing what they think is making a woman happy, but the woman ain't saying that.
Right.
And then
Right.
she's already building up this library of, oh, I've had enough. He's not pleasing me. He's not listening. He's not this. And he just thinks he's doing the best. Because you're going around saying, oh, this is my man. This he do. He's like, man, like she whole time you just like.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. I agree. I definitely agree. And that goes on both ends. I feel like that people just need to learn how to, like you said, communicate. I love the 3 C's: communicate, comprehend, and be considerate. Consider the person, because you can, when you do have a connection, and I don't even think it's a connection, people just aren't as bold as they think they are. People aren't as confident as they think they are. Like you said, people are not who they think they are. In those moments, it's okay to say, even in that moment, right, when you said about being in the car and well, dang, that made me feel away, but you're right. Like, it's okay, like, maybe, because maybe, you did make her feel away. You can't tell somebody how they feel, right? Like, you don't know, because it might be what's a trigger for her. Okay. But it's like just saying, like, hey, I know what you said was the truth, but maybe your tone of voice was a little, it made me feel like you were reprimanding me, you were scolding me almost. Like, I don't even know if you were aware of that, and that probably wasn't your intention, but that's how I felt. And people can't even, for one, validate themselves to even advocate for themselves to get someone to validate them too. So it's just like, yeah. But those, listen, relationships are interesting chapters of our lives, and yeah, I'm not trying to laugh at what she was saying.
No, girl, no, that's good.
But
No,
look, I've been
I'm just
petty
trying
on
to give the
people. I let
viewers an
people up.
example, like of what could be a trauma and what would be the response to it. Like I just want to throughout the episode just continue to give like examples because, like you
Yeah,
said, there's too many buzzwords going around
yeah.
throughout our age group to where people think they know what they're talking about. It's like you don't even know what you're saying. Like
Yeah. Like you say, you're going through trauma, and you're actually not
you're
going.
not like
You're going
you're
through some type of adversity, some type of challenge, some type of roadblock or stressor, but you're not actually experiencing trauma.
you just probably had a bad night rest. Like
Yeah.
you're dehydrated. Like
Literally.
there's so many things that can factor into why you may be feeling at an imbalance.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I definitely agree. Yes. That's so funny. Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, definitely. I would say I would say a trauma I experienced when I was younger, when I was in high school. I was dating this guy. Um, Everybody knows this guy. They know, you know me, you know him, most likely. He was a serial cheater. Okay. So I remember one day when I found out something extremely just extremely displeasing. Like I was just like, oh yeah, this is it for me. And I remember the song that was playing in the background. So every time I hear this song, I feel like
What's the song?
that oh my gosh, that easy bag, yeah. I never made look, you know
Oh,
that?
yeah. And Wale.
Yes,
That's
okay.
that takes you back. Yeah.
That's back. It was back in the back in the back. But when I hear that song, I don't really like to hear it. Like now I've gotten better with it, but at first I had to like skip
I
the beat.
bet you be in, I bet when you go out with the girls and stuff like that, and if somebody played that, you just kind of like, mm-mm.
I'm like,
Listen to- Next,
no, this is not the vibe
next,
I'm right, right. But
next.
that's that's an example too. Or like sometimes for people when they experience something, even like sexual abuse, right? They can remember the smells of stuff. Maybe what the room smelled like, what the person smelled like. This, because there's certain things that we or something that they see. I remember one of my clients talked about a situation. It wasn't necessarily sexual abuse, but this very traumatic situation that happened to her. And she remembered the way the sun looked that day. She remembered, like, she can vividly, like, she paints about this. She draws about that particular moment, which, it shows how much that imprinted on her and just that particular event. So yeah, but I definitely do, like, people don't really I don't, when they say trauma, I'm just like, are you sure it's trauma? Is it really trauma? Because it impacts who you are. Because my ex was a serial cheater, I don't cheat. Can't do it. I've been there too many times. It's not fun to get cheated on. So I can't imagine putting someone else in that position. I can't, even if I'm like sick of them and they just get on my nerves, even when you are tempted, it's like I just can't. Like it's hard because it's like, man, I would never want to put anybody in a position, because it puts you such in an insecure position in your life. It makes you feel like something's wrong or you did something, even though you didn't even do it. You know what I mean? So just getting over that point of being confident, being secure within myself now, especially now I'm a single woman. I've been single for 3 years now, right? In the dating scene, right? The dating scene itself is traumatic. On this way, it's like it sucks, but it's like just people, energy, things, just remnants of how I've experienced certain things with certain people and how they just kind of like, if I feel it, I'm most likely gonna be gone. Sorry. Just like, yeah, those are the things that maneuver the way. Like if you lie to me, I'm probably not, it's probably gonna be it. Because it's no point in lying. You know what I mean? Like it's just no, like, yeah. Because I feel like you lying, you about to cheat. In some way, shape, or form, and not just physical cheating, emotionally cheating. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many different foreign ways to do those things. Just to give more an example of that trauma that I mentioned. But um yeah, trauma definitely shapes our lives. But we talked a lot about trauma, and I think that most of us put a condescending tone or a condescending nature on it. But how can we replace trauma as a word? What word would be fitting? Because even though it is trauma and it's traumatic, right? And we can experience that, um even with all we've talked about with both of our cases, even on the smallest scales, right? This trauma, these traumas that we experience have ultimately made us more aware, made us more conscious of not only who we are, but others, and just giving us more information and knowledge about sometimes what people are going through, even when they aren't actually being who we know them to be, or we know who they are at their highest, right? So, what word, what can we use to replace trauma in a more uplifting aspect? It's okay if we can't figure it out right now at this moment, but I do think that there's ways, and these are ways as well to grow through that trauma and grow through that by replacing certain words with others. To, like, yes, it has the same nature, but the way you look at it changes. The perception evolves.
I might can't give you a word, but we could give it an abbreviation. We can spell out trauma and we can use each letter as like we can use like we can use the letters of trauma and kind of define them in our own way. So how will we label T out of trauma? Way we can look at T.
Transformation,
Yeah,
transformation.
like T is for transformation, R is for remission, or R is for um revelation.
Oh,
Uh,
I
R is
like.
for R is for reminisce, because we will reminisce. Like, this is a memory, this is an experience. So like transforming.
Oh,
Uh,
M for mirror, mirror.
yeah, like
They pop that on me. My bad, y'all.
You got A for adventure. You got A for
Mm,
um,
adventure. I like that.
you got a test. Like, you got A for uh alignment. Yeah, I like alignment.
Yes, I was gonna say affirmation, but yes,
Yeah, you got U for utility. You got U for utilization. You got U for unity.
ubiquity.
Yeah,
Yes.
you got U for unique. You got U for universal. I like that.
Yes.
You got U for um unknown. You know, I think
The unknown. Yes. Okay, then.
yeah, you got M. Oh my gosh, you got M for memory. You got M for moment. You got M for magnitude. You got M for you know motion. you got M for
Motion,
you got
energy,
M for
motion,
everything, and then you got A. You got A for another reason of what that can be. So like,
authenticity.
yeah, so like that's the thing. Like, I may cannot give you a word, but like we can always use it in an acronym or in an abbreviated way. Um, I think oftentimes perspective, our perception
Hmm.
is the closest thing to reality. Like,
Yeah.
our perception. So how we view things is our way of viewing reality. So um I think another way that we can treat trauma or treat it in a positive light is taking the good with the bad, like looking at it from a half glass full type of mentality instead of a half glass empty mindset, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
when we look at hardships, look at it from a what could happen worse, but then also look at it to where, like, what can happen good from it.
Yes. What if it all works out? What if it's all working out? And if
Like,
it's all I watched this lady this talk, and this lady said everything fell apart for it to fall together. And it's like, yes, because it feels like it's falling apart. Obviously, we're right there looking at it, but it's all working out for us at all times.
but that's not going to happen until we can train our brain,
Yes.
our perception to viewing things as if it's not always the end of the world. Because that's like last week. Um, I was coming from brunch, and I was in my Uber and my keys fell out of my pocket. I'm going through TSA about to damn near load to get on the plane, just to find out my keys weren't in my pocket. So just imagine me getting on the flight just for my keys to be in my Uber, and I wouldn't have been able to get in my car. I wouldn't have been able to, because I was going to have an hour drive to get home. So like, but my perception was, look, I don't have my keys. I can't be late to work. So I went up to the desk. They said that, yo, all these seats on these next flights are all first class. And I'm like, bro, like, you would think that you could reschedule your flight and just rebook, but they didn't have no seat available. So I had to pay. I had to pay out of my own pocket. $600 for a whole new plane ticket. And I was like, I can be mad, but then I can look at it like I got my keys, I got
Yeah.
my plane ticket to go home. So will I get home a few hours later? Yeah, but I'll be able to still go to bed. I'll be able to get myself ready for it, and I'm still gonna be able to get up for it. So like I could have viewed it as it being the worst thing ever. That dang, I left my keys in my Uber. Man, like how am I gonna get home? Or I could have just put my pride to the side and be like, hey, the keys are on the way. You're gonna have to miss this flight that you were gonna get home at an early time, and you're just gonna have to reschedule, replan. And so that's what happened. So like that's the thing. Like oftentimes we can use our trauma either against us or we can allow it to help us in a way.
Yes, and I like what you just said, and what you were talking about was the power of alchemization, which I feel like I am an alchemizer from the up, from the bottom to the top, which is when you do reach those adversity, you could have stuck all your energy, pushed all your energy to this fact that your keys are gone, right? You turn it around and say, you know what, at least I got this. At least I got that. At least I got this. At least I got that. Because you can't, that's already has happened. It's over. How can I get back to a state of alignment? How can I get back to my God energy? And so that's beautiful. And everyone should practice alchemy all the time, because that is the power of our perception. That is the power, the true control that we hold and that we carry as human beings.
And
Really like that. I really like that. And then just back to your point about good and bad. Sometimes as a human, we're so, like we talked about earlier, we're trying to define things so often. We're always trying to put things in a box, and sometimes just there's no need for a box. We just need to accept things for what they are. We don't need the
some
labels.
things for what they are, amen.
Right. We don't need the labels. We need the lesson. We need the opportunity to see what it is, for what it, take it for what it is, and then choose the perception, choose the way we want to perceive it that best align with who we are and what we're shooting for. So
Amen.
yeah. Yes, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful for this conversation. I think it went really well. What do you think?
I think it's 10 out of 10 home run park. I hope that
Yeah.
uh, I was able to share some things. I hope the viewers were able to get some things from this. Like I hope I enjoy expressing. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy learning.
Yeah.
I enjoy sharing experiences because we all are human and we all go through things differently. So just to
Okay.
always hear how you handle things and how you overcame them, it's always a blessing.
Yes. And I was over here while you were talking about how you were focusing your energy on all the things that you do, what you do have, and on that abundance mindset and not focusing on that lack perspective. So I was over here writing with the trauma with our thing.
Yeah, that A could be abundance. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
See you with me, but I was trying to like come up with something that we can end this off with our acronym of trauma. So I want you to help me with this a little
Okay.
bit. Okay. So I have transforming revelations by alchemizing the unknown. I need the M and the A.
Unknown.
T, I got the T, transforming revelations by alchemizing
mm,
the unknown to mirror abundance, or to magnetize.
To
We
um
said, I wish motion was a verb.
to um I'm gonna say
Oh, A for acceptance.
the last A.
No, it doesn't matter. I was just saying like
Um,
that's another yeah for acceptance.
mm, to I probably to magnify
To magnify. Okay.
abundance, to magnify um uh,
Authentic
mm,
alignment. What are you thinking?
magnify. I like to magnify alignment, but to magnify. I'm trying to give it more of an adjective now
Okay.
rather than a verb for this A and this last A because that second A was a verb, alchemize,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So an adjective like to describe what we're magnifying,
Mm-hmm.
So to magnify, um, abundance. Is that the first
But
one?
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's the first thing I wrote down. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Let me read it again.
Really?
Okay. Transforming revelations by alchemizing the unknown to magnetize abundance. I think that's perfect. That eats down. I like that. That's a great way when we think about trauma, guys. We're gonna be thinking about trauma in that aspect with that acronym. I would.
Good. That's good.
That's
That's gonna, that's gonna
beautiful.
that's gonna help somebody throughout the week.
Yes, look at the power of community, guys. And you know what? It didn't have to just be about men or just about women. This is a power about the balancing of both energies. And this is what we in our community, especially in the Black community, but in just community in the world in general. We're here together for a purpose, not to be at war, but to be at love, to be in community, to be in sharing experiences, to be in abundance. And this was just a great episode. I'm so grateful
I
to have you
appreciate
here.
it.
I'm so delighted to have you here.
I
We
appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was a great talk. It was what we expected, probably past what we expected, but
yes, it's
it
beautiful.
was great. It was great, despite of the technical difficulties. But that was
Hey,
they won't see that. They
robots.
won't see that. They won't know that.
Yes, those are the roadblocks, not the trauma. Okay, period. Those are the roadblocks, and that's life. But we brought the energy, and I'm so grateful to have you on my platform. Here we grow, where we are growing and evolving one day at a time, one step at a time, and one moment at a time. I will see you guys next time. Hopefully, we'll have Dan back very soon. Bye.
Go.
You
Appreciate
too.
you. Yeah.